This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Roland Goulas.
And today we have finally made it to episode 34. We're
allowed. Part of an episode we've done.
Yeah.
Saturday. We tried like hell to get you an episode on Saturday, guys. We tried.
We absolutely tried a bunch of times, but it was just not in the cards. I ended up losing power at my house. So long story short, we were not able to get an episode out for you guys on Saturday, so we do apologize, but we're here now. Maybe a little bonus episode for you on a Monday here. Hopefully, we have no more issues. Hopefully this gets out to you guys today.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. So today's topic is the WWF Invasion pay-per-view. It took place on July 22nd, 2001, so we're just a couple days removed from the 19th anniversary of that show.
It's an interesting time in the WWF at the time. No more WCW, essentially. I mean, obviously they're in the storyline here, but I mean, you know, it's not a different company anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And things have changed. WWE was still really red hot at this time. I mean, they weren't. It wasn't like they were struggling like they are now with, you know, no fans and ratings and stuff. But they decided they wanted to have some competition. They decided that was where they made their money, having a Monday Night War, having, you know, a different company. So they figured they'd make their own different company, which was kind of the precursor what led to the brand split, really.
Mm-hmm. Yep, competition within themselves, what they were kind of going for. So so the theme of this pay-per-view is you have ECW and WCW teaming up to try to take down the WWE, which is kind of, you know, what fans have been wanting for a long time, probably, but probably not with the cast of characters that we got here. Because you got to remember, a lot of the WCW guys had guaranteed contracts, so they got paid just to sit at home and do nothing, which you can't blame them. I mean, if I was in the same position, I'd do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, on that 8 to 10 minutes that we recorded Saturday, we brought that up exactly. It was, you know, it's hard. Why would you do anything differently if you're paid to sit home and make the kind of money that, you know, Hall and Nash and Hogan and Flair and these guys had guaranteed money, and they would have been stupid to try to get out of that contract to go make potentially less money wrestling and putting miles on their bodies. So, it's hard, like you said, to have any invasion where you don't have those names. You don't have the NWO. You don't have Ric Flair. You don't have Sting. You don't have any of these guys.
No.
It's
Goldberg.
It's Chuck Palumbo and a bunch of, you know, it's really the big names. Booker T. I mean, Booker T was the biggest name from WCW. I think. I don't. At that time, I can't think of anybody else that was really a bigger name.
Yeah, him and probably DDP. I mean.
Yeah. I mean, he had a good push coming in. He you know, kidnapped the Undertaker's wife, now ex-wife, Sarah, and then kidnapped Austin's wife, also Deborah McMichael, which is also Austin's ex-wife now. So funny how 19 years does both of those guys. But other than that, there's just a bunch of you know, mid-card guys, really. And I'm not trying to insult anybody, but that's what they were.
Mm-hmm.
There was no real notable names. I mean, you know, Tim, you're wearing your Hollywood Hogan shirt. He was nowhere to be found.
Nope.
He was at home. He was on the beach. Brother, that doesn't work for me, brother. So, it's hard to. They did the best with what they could with what they had, and you know, there's still some good wrestling, but it's just the name recognition was not there.
Yeah, it was certainly lacking a little bit. We'll touch into it as we go through the card. So we have one match that took place on Heat. You have, and this might be the longest Heat match ever. It went 6 minutes and 43 seconds. We have Chavo Guerrero representing the Alliance, getting a win over Scotty Hottie representing the WWF. Obviously, we weren't able to go back and watch this match, but I would imagine it was pretty good. I mean, they got a decent amount of time for being on Heat. And they're two pretty good workers. I think both are a little bit underrated in their, in their abilities. So I would think this one probably ended up pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at Chavo's last name, that right there gives you. I have yet to see a Guerrero that can't wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some guys, some Guerreros that have a little bit less personality. I mean, Chavo's one of those guys that personality-wise never really clicked as much as they'd hoped, but he still had a good personality and he had a great wrestling attributes. So. You know, the Guerrero name in the business is synonymous with great wrestling, and you know, Scotty Hottie, somewhat underrated. I think he was more known as a tag guy with Brian Christopher and Too Cool, and you know, he could go, but yeah, it was probably like you said, it was almost a 7-minute match. And I think the last pay-per-view we did, they had like 5 minutes and 4 matches.
Yeah.
They were like 1 minute 10, 53 seconds. Like, yeah, it was definitely a long match for what we've seen.
Absolutely. We kick off the actual show with the tag team match. We have Edge and Christian, obviously representing the WWF, against Lance Storm and Mike Awesome representing the Alliance. Match went about 10 minutes and 10 seconds. I thought it was a good, solid opener. I don't think you can go wrong opening the show with Edge and Christian. Edge, Hall of Famer, Christian, sure to be Hall of Famer. And then you have Lance Storm, who's a really good technician, one of the best probably ever. And Mike Awesome, who can go, too. I mean, Mike Awesome probably underrated for his work in the ring. So I thought this match, they did pretty well. I thought it was a good, solid opener to kick off the show.
Yeah, I think that they wanted a little bit of energy to start the show, which any show should have a good match to go out with and to start with. And, yeah, I mean, Edge and Christian, like you said, Edge is in the Hall of Fame, Christian should be. I don't see Mike Awesome going in per se, but I mean, I can see Lance Storm going in down the road, especially for all the stuff he's done for training wrestlers too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that his what he's given to the business, definitely I can see him going in. So I mean, you have probably 3 Hall of Famers when all said and done in that match to start it off. And Mike Awesome, I think, again, we talked about him last week. I think he might be a little bit underrated. He was a big dude. That could do some pretty impressive stuff for a big guy. He wasn't just a big, like Rob Terry guy from TNA. Somebody like that is a big, brick shithouse that can't move. He could actually do some decent moves for a bigger guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was a good way to start the pay-per-view. Not to be confused with what comes up next. Not to step on your toes, but this next thing was not good.
What do you mean it wasn't good? I don't think when you had Edge and Orton given the tagline "Greatest Wrestling Match Ever," I don't think they took this match into consideration. What's coming up next?
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, this could be a dark horse. It's a write-in vote, probably from Earl Hebner, Nick Patrick. That's it. Those are the only guys that are going to vote this match in. So.
Yeah, you heard that right. Earl Hebner and Nick Patrick, both referees. Obviously, Earl Hebner representing the WWF, or Nick Patrick representing the Alliance. 2 referees going at it. Yeah, Mick Foley. Mick Foley was the special guest referee in this match. Luckily,
if you're going to have 2 referees fight, you may as well have a wrestler referee it. Right?
You know, right?
Having a referee do it, right? There's already 2 referees in the ring. Why have a third one?
Yeah, this one, I mean, it was, like we say, as we quote Bruce Pritchard pretty often, it was all gaga in this one.
Yeah.
No, not much wrestling in here. I think Earl Hebner won with a spear, or somewhat of a spear.
Yeah, I didn't know if that's what you call it. It was ugly. It's funny too, because if that was how the match technically ended, that's how the other match ended. Christian, to go back to that, Christian hit Mike Awesome with a spear.
Yep.
And Edge on top of him. So if that's the case, 2 matches in a row have ended with a spear. if you want to call it a spear that Hebner gave him.
But it's pretty entertaining. If you want a good laugh, I would go back and watch it. It's only 2 minutes and 50 seconds, so.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go into it knowing what it is. It's not going to be, it's not going to be a Dave Meltzer 5-star classic by any means.
No.
I don't know what it got on the Observer, but it probably wasn't good.
I wouldn't think so. We step it up a little bit, though, with our next match. Is another tag team match. You have the APA, Bradshaw and Farouk, against Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Hare representing the Alliance. This match went just over 7 minutes. Again, I thought it was a solid match. I think it was good placement on the card. I don't think it's one they would open the show with, like you said, for the energy purposes. But I think it's good placement. Solid workers. I think Palumbo and O'Hare are pretty good workers. And then you know what you're going to get with the APA. It's kind of a brawler style. But I thought that I was pretty entertained by this match.
Yeah, it was a hard hitting match. I will say that. It definitely isn't going to be a catch can style match with these 4 guys no matter what.
Mm.
But yeah, it was what it was. It was an intense match. And whenever you have the APA involved, you're gonna get worked out in the ring.
Yes.
Farouk, Ron Simmons and Bradshaw, they were gonna, it was stiff when they laid some of their stuff in, and that's how they work. I would imagine taking that clothesline from hell at some point from some guys probably got their head just about. But yeah, it was, for what it was a pretty good match. when I saw this match on the card, I was like, oh boy, but it actually wasn't a bad match.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we have Billy Kidman representing the Alliance, getting a win over X-Pac, representing the WWF in about 7 minutes and 12 seconds here. Again, I thought this match was pretty good. I wish they could have gone maybe a little bit longer. You have two really talented guys that can go, two really good cruiserweights here. Billy Kidman was the cruiserweight champion for the Alliance. X-Pac was the light heavyweight champion for the WWF. So I thought they did pretty well, although I think they could have had a little bit more time to show a little bit more what they could do. Interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I totally agree. It's two guys that I think are maybe overlooked for their actual wrestling ability sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But it was definitely a nice, fast-paced, good match. And anytime I think X-Pac might be one of the best at laying kicks in. Back then he with his feet, when they said educated feet, he used them well. And Kidman, I think, the ultimate overachiever. He married Tori Wilson. So
yes. It was interesting to note, though, that this was a pro WWF crowd at the show, but X-Pac was actually getting booed here. So that was a little bit interesting that the crowd was booing a WWF guy.
Well, that's probably because this is when he was in X Factor with Albert.
Yep.
I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but it seemed like he had his fair share of tag team partners along the way.
That's true.
Dating all the way back to the 1, 2, 3 Kid. He'd go with Scott Hall, and then he'd have any of the DX guys, Road Dogg. Then all of a sudden he's tag teaming with Kane, and then he's tag teaming with Albert. It's just interesting folk that he's teamed up with over the years. And I forgot about that actually till I saw the entrance music. I was like, oh yeah, no shit. That was the X Factor period of time.
Yep. Just Incredible was also in that group.
Yeah, well, but obviously though, I mean, it brought Albert stock up just being affiliated with X-Pac. That not that X-Pac was like up here for stars, but I mean he was upper mid card, and they wanted to try to elevate Albert to that level. And it seemed, I mean, he was in a couple matches from this that we'll get to, so he was actually on the card further than X-Pac was.
Yeah.
So clearly it was working. Whatever they were trying to do, it was working because they had stock in him. And I mean, he's still around today. Yeah,
really big with NXT. I think the head trainer there. So
Matt Bull. He came back as Tensai. If anybody remembers that
yep.
for a little while. I think that. And I know we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but it, like I said, the music caught me off guard when it started for X-Pac when he came out, because I'm so used to the DX X-Pac music. And then I hear Uncle Cracker, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. They did that for a little while.
So we'll get to more Albert in a little bit for you guys. But first off...
We have to have more Albert.
We have to have more Albert. Oh, man. Next up, we have Raven representing the Alliance, getting a win over William Regal, who's the commissioner at the time for the WWF, in about 6.5 minutes. Again, I think it's another solid match. Again, I think William Regal is one of the better wrestlers that you're going to find. So again, I think these guys could have maybe gone a little bit longer. But again, I was pretty entertained by this one. I think Raven did really well here. And yeah, I was pretty entertained by this one.
Yeah, Johnny Polo for the win.
Yeah.
And, well, it's funny because we've talked about that, and then a couple pay-per-views back, he was Scotty Flamingo at WCW. So
yep,
you've had all the faces of Raven here.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's, at this point, it makes the Alliance on the main card. They were down. They had lost the first 3 matches. So this match brings them back to 3-2. But then later in the show, they talk about how Chavo won on the Heat show, which made it tied. So technically, at this point, it's tied 3-3 now after the Raven-William Regal match.
Yes.
So we're tied 3-3, and there's, 5 matches left, I think?
4.
Yeah,
5. Yeah, 5.
Right?
Yep.
So, it's best 2 out of 3 at this point now going forward. So this match wasn't a bad match, like you said. I think, William Regal is definitely another guy that the things he's given to the business, he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Not just wrestling, but and overcoming his addiction. He was in trouble there for a while. So for him to still be with NXT and be relevant and be a character that people like many years later is a testament. I mean, look at a similar guy like Goldust. I mean, Dustin Rhodes. He was in a bad place. It's nice to see these stories because a lot of them we don't see, and the guys end up dead. And it's unfortunate that they have different different vices they fall on. And it's nice to see guys like Regal and Dustin Rhodes overcome their problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more there. I mean, William Regal, definitely underrated for what he brings to the business. Next up, we have a 6-man tag team match. We have Chris Kanyon, Hugh Morris, and Sean Stasiak representing the Alliance. Going to get a win over Albert, Big Show, and Billy Gunn, obviously representing the WWF, in about just under 4.5 minutes here. Which might be a little too long for this one. This one was kind of...
This was the Earl Hebner match might have been better than this match.
This one wasn't that great. It feels like just a smorgasbord of talent here, maybe just to get a payday. Just gonna group a bunch of...
it's like, who do we have left on each side? We have the one Billy Gunn.
Yep.
We'll throw him in with the Big Show. And, Albert, that's right. He's on a song that we heard from 3 matches ago, so we'll throw him out there. And then you have literally Chris Kanyon, who, whatever. Hugh Morris, who, he was at NXT for a while until some of the stuff, that came out about him, I guess, kind of controversial, being a trainer. Some of the stuff he made some of the talent do, allegedly. Mm-hmm. And then you have Meat.
Yes.
So I guess technically you have 6 meat in this match. It's really all it is. Unfortunate. The ending was brutal. There was a spot in the match where Stasiak ends up getting Billy Gunn when the referee was distracted, and I don't even think either one of them knew what to do. And it looked ugly. And then Hugh Morris ends up getting the pin, but he's laying like sideways on it. It was bad.
Yeah, I think no more explanation needed for that one.
No, there's no other way. It could have been a decent match had they booked it as a match, but it's almost like they just booked it as a way to beat, for the Alliance to get ahead, because it was. It was a heater spot for the Big Show afterwards. He threw everybody around after the match was over.
Mm-hmm.
But it was that was probably the best part of the match. Big Show beating the crap out of the 3 guys. But before that, it wasn't real pretty.
Next up, you have Tajiri, who's representing the WWF here, getting a win over Taz, representing the Alliance, in about 5 minutes and 43 seconds here. We talked about Tajiri and Taz last week on ECW Heatwave. A little bit different circumstances now. Tajiri representing the WWF and is the good guy. Back then, last week's show, he was the heel. Again, you're going to get a decent match out of these guys. They're really talented workers. Tajiri, again, really underrated for what he can do in the ring. Taz, a stiff worker, but a good worker. So, again, I thought this was a pretty solid match.
And this was after Taz's best days were behind him due to injury, too. I mean, unfortunately, he never really got a run with WWE before his injury. His neck injury caught up with him. So, you could tell this match wasn't booked to be a long match. They wanted to try to, get a match out of it, but not put anybody in any danger. And I don't think Taz could have worked with anybody safer than Tajiri. Tajiri is a guy that can take care of you in so many ways. And he has no problem bumping for you. And that was the perfect combination for this match. William Regal had the pep talk with Tajiri before this match, telling him, hey, go avenge my loss, which his loss was, to Raven earlier in the show. So it was a cool little storyline there because, like you said, Tajiri was William Regal's apprentice, essentially, his sidekick. And I think for the people that William Regal had to be with too, like Tajiri and Eugene and some of the characters that they've put William Regal with over the years, he deserves a tip of the hat for that too. But this match, you can definitely tell it wasn't the best Taz that we could have had, just because he was a little banged up. But it was still a pretty good match. And at this point, this now puts the WWE back even again. So now we're even at there's 3 matches left, and so now they went from a best of 3 to a best of 5 to a best of 3 now. So whoever wins the next 2 matches, or next 3 matches, 2 out of the next 3 are going to win the show.
Mm-hmm. In our next match, you have Rob Van Dam representing the Alliance, getting a win over Jeff Hardy representing the WWF. This is for the Hardcore Championship, which is Ironically enough, the only championship that was defended on this show. This was a really good match. I mean, you have two excellent guys willing to take chances in here, willing to put their bodies on the line for the fans, and they did just that in this match. I think probably the best match on the card, and I know we have a couple left to go through, but I think this one probably takes the cake for me.
Yeah, I mean, this match you could have had start the show. You probably could have had it end the show.
Mm-hmm.
This match was a very, like you said, I think it might have been the best match on the card. The main event wasn't terrible, but I think that even though it was a hardcore match, there was still a lot of wrestling involved too.
Yep.
So that makes I hate when you have just a hardcore match of like 3 wrestling moves and the rest of the people are getting hit with stuff.
Yeah.
This was a legitimate wrestling match with some hardcore stuff mixed in. Of course, Rob Van Dam being the ECW brethren coming in, he should win this match in theory. He shouldn't lose a hardcore match to Jeff Hardy. And he didn't. So, it was definitely, like you said, I think it was the best match on the card, too. I totally agree. I don't know what they could have done differently in this match. That's how good it was. There was nothing that really stuck out. So, that was bad or that was botched. Or it was a good match.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. I know we have a couple to go to, but if I had to pick a recommendation to go back and watch one match from this show, it's going to be this one right here.
And you say a couple more, but it's really one match.
Yes.
I mean, the next match isn't a match, but
no, not really.
Knowing that there's one actual wrestling match left, I also feel safe saying this is the one. If you have an extra 15 minutes to kill one day and you want to fire up the network, check out this match. It was a good match.
But we should talk about this. Well, I guess you can call it a tag team match, maybe. I don't know. It's a bra and panties tag team match. Mick Foley's the special guest referee. You have Trish Stratus and Lita representing the WWF against Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler representing the Alliance. This type of match doesn't really age too well. You have to strip your opponent down to your bra and panties. Can't really get away with that today. It was fun watching it, though.
You don't see too much of that now.
No. But it was fun watching it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was. It did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody was naked or down to their bra and panties. Their tops and bottoms were removed pretty much. Well, everybody on the Alliance side, essentially, and it was what it was. I mean, back in the early '90s or late '90s, early 2000s, this is the type of women's match you saw.
Yeah, this is.
It wasn't a wrestling match. It was usually some stipulation with one of them having to get naked, and that was the loser, which means all the winners, I guess, is what they were looking for. But yeah, it definitely wasn't much of an actual wrestling match.
No, not at all.
That was Mick Foley's thing too. They said that Mick Foley agreed to do the referee match if they let him do this match also, which is why we saw Mick Foley a second time. Plus, he had that referee shirt custom made, I would imagine, so they probably want to make sure that gets on the show a couple times.
Oh, he spent a lot of time with that referee shirt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We make it to our main event. They called this the inaugural brawl. You have the WCW ECW coalition, which is represented by Booker T, Bubba Ray Dudley, Devon Dudley, Diamond Dallas Page, and Rhino. They're along with Shane and Stephanie and Paul Heyman. They're going to get a win over Team WWF, which is represented by Chris Jericho, Kane, Kurt Angle, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and The Undertaker. Vince McMahon is out there. This match went about 29 minutes. I think the match was a good match. Probably a little too long for my liking. I'm not a big fan of longer matches, unless you have really good talent in there. Which, I'm not saying these guys aren't really good talent, but
it's got to be something that keeps going.
Yeah,
you can't start and stop.
Yeah, absolutely. But really, I don't think anybody really cares about what the actual match. I think they care about the ending. Stone Cold Steve Austin turns his back on the WWF, hits a stunner on Kurt Angle, puts Booker T over Kurt Angle, allows the Alliance to get the win, and Stone Cold is joining the Alliance.
You think that had something to do with Booker T getting beat up in a supermarket?
Maybe.
That was the I owe you one kind of thing. I'll help you out. But yeah, it's unfortunate that you have this much talent in this match, and that's how they end it. I mean, I get they wanted the shock and on and whatnot, but I don't know. Like I said, I was kind of torn when I saw the ending. I didn't know if I was more disappointed or if I was more shocked. I mean, as a kid, I probably was shocked, but looking back on it, it was just like, disappointing. Come on, really? Because they were teasing Austin not being part of the team the whole time.
Yeah.
So they kind of gave it away, really, by having it happen. The more surprising thing would have been if Austin actually won the match for the WWF. I think at that point, you kind of knew, you almost had a feeling it was going to happen. And then I don't know about you, but the only thing that I see wrong with this whole match, like competitor-wise, I feel like Chris Jericho shouldn't be in this match for either side. I think I know Austin was in WCW too, but he was literally just fresh off of WCW.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Tajiri thing. I mean, it was weird that, like, I get it, he's a bigger star of the WWF, but, like, still, everybody else to me, like, you name off, Booker T, the Dudley Boys, Rhino, okay, yeah, those are ECW, WCW guys, true. And then, DDP, same thing. You know where he's coming from. You get to the WWF side, you have The Undertaker, you have Kane, there we go, found you. You have Undertaker and Kane, okay, that makes sense. And then you have, Kurt Angle, same thing, a guy that really has only been in the WWF at this time. You'd go to Impact after, but I mean, at this point. But yeah, to me, for some reason, Jericho just stuck out as a weird, and I know he wants to stick to WCW, but it was still good, but it was just a weird, I'm like, I don't know. But other than that, the match itself, like I said, was pretty good. The ending kind of left a little bit to be desired because they pretty much told you what was going to happen, unfortunately. And like I said, had they actually gone the other way with it, what if they had Jericho turn? That would have made sense because Jericho used to be in the, and you wouldn't have seen it coming. Not that, like I said, not that Austin wasn't in the WCW before either, and ECW for that matter. They both were, but it's one of those things where, like, they pretty much told you what was going to happen because Austin was on the fence about being on the team to begin with, and then Diamond Dallas Page had to kidnap his wife to pretty much get him, to get the old Stone Cold back and all this stuff, and then he just turns on Vince anyways, which I guess if you want the old Stone Cold, he's fighting Vince McMahon, so I guess, okay, the old Stone Cold's back. Yeah. But yeah, I don't, it definitely could have been better, and like I said, it wasn't terrible, but watching it back now, it's like, wow, they kind of gave all that away.
Yeah. And these are things you pick up on watching it, 20 years later, which you might not pick up on when you're watching it live. But yeah, you're right. Throughout the whole show, they're kind of hinting at something's going to happen, something screwy is going to happen with Stone Cold. But overall, I thought the show was actually pretty good. I mean, they had that one really horrible match, that 6-man tag, but I thought otherwise it was pretty decent. I'll give it probably a good 6.5, 7 range if I had to rate the show.
Yeah, I personally, I think there was some matches that surprised me in a good way. Like I said, the APA match really kind of surprised me because Palumbo and Jindrak were kind of...
O'Hare.
Oh, yeah, sorry. John Stasiak, Palumbo, O'Hare.
They're all the same.
Sorry. But yeah, so those two guys are still kind of green at the time. So to me, I was thinking it's going to be... But it actually wasn't a bad match. It turned out kind of like the Stasiak part, where in the three-way, or the 6-man rather, where all that botching happened. I kind of felt like that was going to happen in the APA match, and then Bradshaw and Fruber getting pissed and beating the shit out of them, which didn't happen, thankfully, because the match was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I probably a 6 maybe if I had to. I still haven't yet to see anything that was like the ECW show last week.
No.
And hoping that that being one of the top 5 shows leads us into next week's show.
Yeah, so speaking of next week's show, we're going to circle back to ECW. We're going to go another Heatwave show, Heatwave 1998. This show was voted the best ECW pay-per-view of all time. And so we really enjoyed Heatwave 99, really thought that was an excellent show, so we're really have high expectations for Heatwave 98, so looking forward to watching it and covering it for you guys next week.
Yeah, 99 was in the top 5. I think it was either 3 or 4. And 98 was the best. And according to the write-up, said that it's not even close.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, like I said, 99 was great. If that's the case, this should be amazing. So it's kind of hard. We don't want to give you the same shows that Conrad's given you, but then we also want to do shows we haven't seen or something we haven't seen in a while, so that we were actually invested in watching it. Because if we go back and watch a show that we know what happened and we just don't care about it, then we're not going to give you a decent show. I want to at least give you a decent show, because it's just going to be blah to all of us for both of us for the three hours of just sitting there staring at the screen going, man, that was great.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. We're trying to think outside the box a little bit, do a little bit more WCW stuff, a little more ECW stuff, and then some WWE, WWF stuff that's kind of maybe underrated. That some of the stuff that is a good gem to go back and watch.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and like you said last week, that both of us really haven't watched a whole lot of ECW stuff, just because we were young and our parents kind of put the hammer down on that type of stuff. So the ECW stuff is exciting for me to watch because it's something new, and I'm sure it's exciting for you to watch too. So yeah, we're looking forward to bringing you Heatwave '98 next week.
Yeah, like I said, I think that this is gonna, like I said, if it lives up to even part of what the '99 show was, this is gonna be another great show. Something that we'll be invested in a lot, so we'll be able to give you guys a good show.
Absolutely. So Heatwave, ECW Heatwave 1998, that is coming for you next week right here. We hope you enjoyed it. Again, we apologize for having a little bit of a delay with this episode.
Also, not to cut you off before you send us home, this is the first time we've tried Zoom also.
Yes.
I want to throw that out there. Usually we use Skype, and we're not allowed to use the video on Skype because it kind of interferes with the audio. So we're trying Zoom this time around. If anybody has a preference, if they think something sounds better, just let us know. We'll go back to it. But at least this way we can see each other and try not to interrupt each other. That was the premise of this. So hopefully the audio is good for you guys, and it seemed to be when we tested it. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah, let us know if you have a preference to either Skype or Zoom. We're trying something new. We're trying to give you the best quality product that we can for you guys. So yeah, just definitely give us your feedback. All right, so we'll be back with you next week, Saturday at 5, hopefully, barring any power outages.
Power gods notwithstanding.
Yes, we'll be back with ECW Heatwave 1998. Until then, everybody take care. Have a great week. I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Nolan Matula.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.